Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Roberto. How are you?
I'm well. Catherine, this is a free-flowing conversation, so I just want to get right into it. First of all, welcome back.
Thank
After
you.
many years and different career changes and iterations, and congratulations. Congratulations are in order on the new role, which is extremely important for our community. So thank you. And we couldn't have a better friend and ally and champion all the years I've known you. Catherine,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry to talk over you. Quickly, I have an issue, and
Oh boy.
yeah.
And if it's a free-flowing conversation, we're going to be talking over each other because
Absolutely.
we know each other a long time.
Absolutely, but I have an issue. I am one of these. I guess I'm a self-hating Latino. I guess. No, I say that tongue in cheek, half joking, but in reality, I don't see it. I don't see the progress. I don't see the ability to mobilize in great numbers. Obviously, we can get into we're not monolithic. There's so many different things. We're not, no community is like one size fits all. But, it's all these years later. And I'm talking about Herman Badillo, some of the pioneers. And we still don't have a citywide. We still don't have a statewide. And I don't count appointments. I'm sorry. I don't count inside baseball. And I have friends, right, that have achieved a whole lot, but these were backdoor maneuverings between other council members. This was not a popular vote, and I don't see it. What can you offer me to give me hope in terms of Latino leadership, not just locally? And I'm very New York centric. I believe that it's true. It's factual. After the president, it's the mayor of New York City. Everything comes out of New York. We're the capital of the world.
But that's also...
And so should Latino empowerment. But go ahead.
And that's a very centric way to look at it. Us as New Yorkers, we always feel that we are the center of the universe. And in many ways we are, right? Because the way New York goes, the way the rest of the country goes in many ways. But let's take a back step. I don't think you're necessarily self-hating, although perhaps a little bit of a cynic. But that's a good thing, because we all need to be cynical of where we're at as a community in terms of political representation, power, progress, right? Which were some of the things that you raised. So let's talk about the national piece. Number one, we had the largest number of Latinos who participated in last year's election. Over 36 million Latino voters eligible to vote, over 17 million who actually voted. Now, yes, we're not a monolith. Perhaps we're not happy with the way, quote unquote, the Latino community overall voted. But what many people forget, and we talk about a lot, not being homogeneous, people forget actually to put that into action and to act like we're not a monolith, right? We say we're not a monolith, but parties and candidates often don't act like we're not a monolith. So we voted in the way that our communities were voting.
Well, compare it to the last 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was 17 million.
Right.
In a country of 250 million.
It's a 5 million eligible voter increase and over 3 million actual voter increase. By the way, young voters being a majority of that growth, people aging into voting age, because Latinos are a very young community. But that's the national, right? So when we talk about power, Latinos, by the numbers, we voted. Now, the question is, well, what did that translate to? We're almost 20% of the population. We're only 2% of elected officers. And I agree with you. Appointments don't necessarily count. Those are not people who are voted in by the community and perhaps don't necessarily represent our values or our best interests either. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay. Question now. Trump, why did Trump do so well with Latinos?
A number of different reasons. And I think the community met the moment. Number one, there was a lot of disappointment with the Biden administration. And people just didn't feel like the country was going in the right direction. And by the way, that's not just Latinos. The fact is that much has been said about the Latino community and Latinos voting for Trump, and particularly Latino men, who 45% of them voted for Trump this past cycle. But the fact is, a lot of white people voted for Trump, and they're really responsible for Trump being elected to office. And yes, many would say there was a shift, a democratic shift of votes for Trump, but there was also a lot of people who just didn't come out. So overall, there were a lot of factors. But why specifically? Disenchantment with the Trump administration, and Kamala Harris just did not do enough to separate herself from the administration and the things that people felt were wrong. Also, by the way, she only had, roughly about 3 months to get her campaign off the ground. So Trump had a very much a head start in the election and in a presidential, no matter how much money you have. And let's face it, she had $1 billion. If you don't campaign with enough time, that $1 million, you might as well light it up on fire. I would also argue that within the Latino community, there has always been a certain amount of conservatism amongst us. And Trump was able to exploit that by targeting our biggest fears around issues that matter, because we're a God-fearing population, right? God-fearing community. So when you look at the fact that Latinos represent roughly 14% of all small businesses in America, and small business owners felt like they were overtaxed, overregulated, and they weren't getting enough services, well, that's a community that very much was siding with Trump. Then you look at the fact that we are also, very much coming from countries where the Catholic Church and evangelism is a big part of our culture, right? So, topics like LGBTQ rights and other fear-mongering and misinformation that came to communities around women's rights, basically everyone's rights are at risk in a Trump administration. But the way that it was framed in the campaign, it really created panic amongst many voters who understood that the Democratic Party was focusing on these fringe issues, while in reality, they should have been focusing on the economy. And at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. It's the economy, stupid.
Correct. Katherine, I'm going to put you on the spot. Name 3 Latinos or Latinas at a national level that move things and people. So, I'm going to use the term juice.
Latinos and Latinas who got
and
juice.
And why?
Well,
National first.
National first. So I look at folks like Senator Padilla, who has been really leading within the upper chamber of Congress at the federal level on issues like immigration and the economy and voting rights. I see him as someone who could move the needle within the conference of Latino legislators, as well as in the larger narratives, because he's also been there a long time and knows, as they say, where the bodies are buried. So he's a national figure who I think has been doing a lot of work in support of our community. Locally, I will tell you, Congressman Adriano Espaillat is not only the first Dominican to make it to Congress, but he is also now chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. That's a lot of juice, because you have members who are hailing from all parts of the country and who perhaps have diverse electorates within their districts. Maybe all don't agree on the same things, but Congressman Espaillat can bring them together within the caucus to push legislation forward, to push budget items forward, and to advocate for our community in a cohesive voice. And he has been leading on a number of issues. And as a formerly undocumented immigrant, certainly immigration has been at the center. But he has led in terms of the trade agreements with Latin America and the investments that need to be made in order to protect our safety and security and separate our dependence on trade with China. He has been doing a number of things that I think are important for his constituents around housing and economic development and transportation and infrastructure dollars that have come to New York and his district. But again, that is something that translates beyond his district, and that's why I would put him in that category of a national figure.
Who would be the third?
And I would say the third, frankly, is former Senator, now Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is a Latino of a different political persuasion than I. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but who, frankly, is the first Latino to get to that position and who now yields a lot of power within the Trump administration as we see, the next 4 years unfolding.
It's interesting when you mention Marco Rubio. I've always, to that, which also plays into my cynicism. I've seen the Castro brothers. I remember Villaraigosa, mayor of Los Angeles. I remember Bill Richardson. Well, Congressman Luis Gutierrez is still in the mix, correct? Help me.
Well, not necessarily as a figure in Washington, D.C., because he's no longer a member of Congress, but as an advocate and as a friend of our community, absolutely, he makes his voice heard.
But Bill Richardson, Luis Gutierrez, the Castro brothers, Villaraigosa, Henry Cisneros, once upon a time.
I was going to say, way back when. You're showing your age.
I understand that, but
I was just a little girl back then.
But I'm saying my thing is, it seems to be like this fading thing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We don't have a Jim Clyburn. We don't have, these people that are institutions. Or I'm missing something.
No, I think...
Well, Bob Menendez was there a very long time. He unfortunately, and chaired the Armed Services Committee and achieved a high standing in the Senate, but...
Yes, and I will tell you, we unfortunately lost a tremendous figure within our community with Bob Menendez, because in order for us to achieve the amount of political power and juice that he had in D.C. with anyone else, it's going to be many, many years.
Seniority, yes.
Because of seniority. And so it's really unfortunate, everything that occurred there, because it damages our community and its future power. I will tell you that also it's important to note how it impacted the local political infrastructure in New Jersey. And, we have a gubernatorial race in New Jersey coming up this year. There are no current Latinos in the race, but there are important sectors of the electorate where Latinos can make a huge difference. So New Jersey is going to be an interesting battleground. Right now, the only member of Congress that we had up until this past year's special election of Nelly Poo as the first Latina member of Congress from New Jersey was Rob Menendez, Bob Menendez's son. And so winning that seat for Nelly Poo, and then now with her coming up in her re-election next year, that's going to be critical in order for us as Latinos to keep some kind of federal political power in New Jersey. And part of the work that I'm doing at Latino Victory is trying to build that pipeline of representation in places where we know we have a lot of room to grow, and New Jersey is one of those places.
Question now: what about? Give us a sense of the organization's role at the state and city level.
Sure.
Where does Latino Victory come in at the city and state?
Sure. And for your listeners who might not know, let me give you a little sense of what Latino Victory is. Latino Victory is a national organization built with the mission to build Latino political power at all levels of government so that our voices and values are represented in the policies that drive our country forward. And so we're one of the few national PACs that actually endorse and support candidates at all levels of office, whether it be school board all the way to President of the United States. And so it's a one sentence mission, but we accomplish that through 3 different vehicles. We have a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is the Latino Victory Foundation. That's where we do a lot of our research, polling, voter registration, nonpartisan voter education, and civic leadership, as well as our cultural programming. And so we also have a C4 advocacy organization, which is the Latino Victory Project. And that's where we do a lot of our issue advocacy on matters of importance to the Latino community. So we talked a little bit about immigration, but it's also economic opportunity and climate change and gun safety, as well as many of the other issues that we know are important. And that's also where we run our training programs for candidates and others, where we run our Vote Like a Mother program, which is to activate climate change Latino voters, and our Afro-Latinas Lead program, which is our own little DEI initiative within Latino Victory to elect the first Afro-Latina to Congress. And in order to do that, we're building that pipeline, right, that we're talking about. And then what people mostly know is the Latino Victory Fund, which is our hybrid super PAC, and that's where we recruit, endorse, and support candidates, and also do independent expenditures in important races where we know we can make a difference.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Sure.
If I'm Richie Torres and I say, Katherine, I want to run against Governor Hochul, I would be one of the few Latinos or Latinas governor of the state of New York. What position does Latino Victory take? Well, is it we need more Latinos in office? We need more Latinos in power? Oh.
So our basic premise is always to support Latino candidates. And by the way, when Latinos are on the ballot, Latinos vote. So it's a 2-pronged benefit to having support and endorsement for Latino candidates.
So you would go with Richie Torres?
So absolutely, we would consider endorsement
against a city governor.
We're not.
Well, that's pretty bold. Well, you gave me some hope. Not because I have anything against Governor Hochul, but I think most people tend to tiptoe around an issue
But our mission is very clear, and I will tell you, Governor Hochul has been a friend to Latino Victory. She has joined some of our fundraising efforts because she understands, like we do, that there is a real vacuum of representation amongst Latinos nationally, but even locally, right? We don't have a citywide, we don't have a statewide.
So would Latino Victory, for example, support Lucha? This new group that's now advocating for more funding from the state for Latino issues.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Lucha.
Would you join a coalition? There is a group led by Assemblymember Amanda Septimo, some other folks in the Latino community pushing for a larger piece of the budget. The budget be allocated to Latino issues and causes in the community.
I'm not familiar with the group or what they stand for, and they have not reached out.
Okay.
But I will tell you that generally Latino Victory as a national organization don't get involved in local issues if it's outside of the core of our work. Again, our mission is to elect Latinos and build representation and political power within our community.
So in the case of Hector LaSalle, that's a big deal.
That was an appointment, not an election.
Okay, so Latino Victory would not get involved in something like that and advocating on behalf of Judge LaSalle.
Again, that's done and over with. It was before my time.
Let's just say, hypothetically, is that something that you all would get involved in on an advocacy level?
It would be. And I will tell you an example. In Arizona, we just had some advocacy around the first Latina who was appointed by the governor to be part of the Arizona Supreme Court. And we have also engaged in appointment type advocacy in other situations as well. So it's something that we've done. It's something that's not outside of our realm of what we would do. But I will tell you this. We look at every recommendation for endorsement very seriously. Because at the end of the day, it's about the whole, not the individual.
And I agree. That's where I'm going.
So we take a look at the person's background, what issues they stand for, right? And we have a questionnaire. You know, where are you on immigration? Where are you on workers' rights? Where are you on women's rights? Where are you on XYZ? And there's, you know, at least 10 different points in which we want to know where these candidates stand. So they have to be aligned. We're a progressive democratic organization. And then furthermore, all endorsements are voted on by our board. So what I and my team do is we put together recommendation memos for those members, those folks who we think are aligned, that also have viability, where we can make a difference in that election and hopefully elect a Latino. By the way, there are times, for example, where there are multiple Latinos in the race. There are a number of city council races coming up right here in New York City. And I will tell you that we probably will not be making endorsements in any of those races because we have to wait to see what happens after the primaries.
There's 2 Latinos running for mayor.
Correct. So there's multiple Latinos there.
How does that work? Or you, by default, stay with the incumbent?
Well, I will say, first of all, neither of the 2 current candidates have filled out an inquiry form on our website. And that is the process by which we would consider an endorsement. So, we've worked with actually all of the candidates in the race, not only for mayor, but for comptroller and public advocate. And we have amazing talent here in New York City. We have a lot of good, upstanding elected officials. And at the same time, you know, we have to make tough choices. So I think it's a little early to make decisions around what endorsements we're going to make in that respect. But I will say that there are a number of races where we know it's going to be very difficult for us to make an endorsement because there are a number of Latinos with similar backgrounds, similar alignment, and similar support. So in a situation like that, we would probably stay out until after the primaries.
How would you rate Governor Hochul on Latino issues and appointments?
I think it's a mixed bag. And, you know, again, it's a difficult job. You have to admit that, you know, first of all, she first got the job by default, right, and by appointment. She was the elected lieutenant governor, and she had to step in to a difficult situation when Governor Cuomo had to step down. And it's been a learning curve. She has, I will say, always made an effort to reach out to Latino communities and Latino community leaders and engage them in the process. And she's been open to conversations. And I think that there's a lot of progress that has been done, but still also a lot of work to do. So I'm not going to say she's done a terrible job. You're not going to catch me saying that.
No, be fair. Be objective.
But
That's
I am
it. That's all I'm
fair.
asking.
And what I am telling you is that I think that she has worked hard to reach out to our community. But there's still a lot more work to be done.
Eric Adams, how would you rate him?
Well, I don't know. What time is it right now? Have any decisions been made regarding his future? I don't know.
But he's had 3.5 years.
Look, he has many friends, some of them mutual friends of ours, who work in his administration. And you know, unfortunately, there's a lot to be said about the way that he has dealt with the migrant issue here in New York City, and the way that he's dealing with the Trump administration. As a national organization, I'm not here to comment on the city policies, although I may have my own personal opinions on them. But I will tell you that if the governor doesn't make a decision, then the voters will decide.
Interesting. But here's, let's take a step back. So you mentioned the city council races. You mentioned potentially endorsing a Richie Torres, conceivably, right? Now, if the two candidates were to fill out the questionnaire required to get the endorsement of Latino Victory, what would you say what are some of the questions included in that questionnaire? Give me an example of the Cliff Notes.
I will tell you the first question is, where do you stand on workers' rights and supporting labor and ensuring that there's economic opportunity for our people. There are other questions around, like I said, some of the larger issues, right? Immigration, climate change, gun safety, for example, is another issue. And in New York City, you know, again, we're a national organization. What we see in Texas, or is not going to be the same thing that we see here necessarily in New York City. But generally, in terms of alignment, like I said, we are a progressive democratic organization. We want to talk about voting rights and access to the ballot. We want to talk about justice issues as well. So like I said, it's 10 to 12 questions, pretty comprehensive, but it gives a clear picture of where we stand and where they stand.
All right, I'll make it easier for you. Give me a letter grade. Give me a letter grade. Governor Hochul.
That's not making it easy.
That's a letter grade.
That's
a letter grade. Governor Hochul, issues and appointments. Letter.
She hasn't filed for our endorsement.
So she would have to fill out the questionnaire.
She would have to fill out the questionnaire for me to give her a letter grade.
So same thing with the mayor, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great answer. Katherine, talk about the city council and the races now. Let's move on. The city council races, how many Latinos and Latinas are actually running? What does that look in? I know that there's 21 for 21.
That was a women's
I know, I understand, but I'm saying in terms of other groups that are out there focused on electing women and different group, but still heavily involved in the city council races.
Correct.
Talk about the role of Latino Victory and how much engagement have those people filled out your questionnaire, right? Because you're saying the two Latino mayoral candidates have not.
Correct.
So how about in the city council?
So there have been quite a few that have filled out the questionnaire, but looking at the fact that, just looking at the numbers, right? So there's 51 council members, there's 11 Latino members currently. If you look at places like the district where Carolina Rivera is, which currently we have a Latina there, and there is another Latina running, but also potentially two other well-known white men that are running as well. Districts like that, where our representation is at risk, are the districts where perhaps Latino Victory can make the biggest difference.
Got it.
If I'm looking at a place like the district in East Harlem, where currently we have the council member Diana Ayala, or in Queens, where we have council member Moya, and there are a few other districts as well. We have other excellent Latinos running, multiple excellent Latinos running. So those are areas where representation is not at risk. It's rather who's more aligned with our issues and our values, and who could perhaps do the best job. And certainly, even if we don't make an endorsement in the primary, it would be an endorsement that we would certainly make in the general election. And why our endorsement matters, frankly, is because we would then put those individuals in a pipeline of support at the national level, right? Where we, help build out their infrastructure, help build out their fundraising. We provide direct support for the campaign. And so in addition to press and communications around the endorsements. So again, there is value, but there are certain districts where the value is even higher because the representation is at risk.
Give me 3 Latinos, citywide, statewide, that move things and people. You gave me national, I want local now.
I gave you national, now you want local. Oh, you're trying to get me in trouble with all our friends, huh? Look, in the city, I have to be partial to the women.
Okay, now, this is your order. This is your time.
Yes.
I'm asking you. You tell me what you think.
Well, and I will tell you, in the city, you have women like Amanda Farias, for example, who's running for Speaker of the City Council. And you have, by the way, others. So I hope I don't get in trouble because I'm not mentioning.
Okay.
But the fact is that they're moving legislation, they're moving policy, they're working with their colleagues. But similarly, you have, Alex Aviles, and you have Carmen de la Rosa, and of course, we already talked about.
By the way, they don't have
Ayala.
to be. Let me clarify. They don't have to be elected. They could be part of the ecosystem.
Correct, but I
That
think
are influential.
in the city, you have a great.
You mentioned
cohort.
3 council members.
You in the city, you have a great cohort of women council members.
Yeah, okay.
Who are moving the ball forward in the ecosystem.
Got it.
And so again, for me, it's relevant because that's the direct line to people and communities. Those are the folks who are making sure that our schools are funded, that our senior centers are funded, that the garbage gets picked up, that we deal with the homeless crisis, et cetera, and so it's the front line of the fence for what impacts people's everyday lives. I will say at the state level, we also have a number of Latinos that are working really hard, representing us. Some, by the way, within the Speaker's office, in the Assembly. Some at the level of the Senate Majority Leader's office, and then others who are elected leaders as well. So I don't think I could narrow it down to 3 people. But I think to your earlier point, it almost seems like there's a void of voices. And I think the cynic in you is trying to look for, okay, who's the next leader? Who's the next leader of the Democratic Party, for example?
Here's what, okay, you know what? Maybe I didn't explain myself.
Is it Hakeem Jeffries?
Well, maybe I didn't explain myself.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people you mentioned,
right,
I agree, are dedicated public servants that care about things, people, and issues. Once upon a time, Dennis Rivera said, I am going to elect you. Mm-hmm. Hit you in the head with a magic wand or whatever. Right. You were in. Mm-hmm. That's power. Mm-hmm. That's power. You call the governor, this, that. Roberto Ramirez, judges, elected officials. That's power.
And it doesn't quite feel
that's
like
power.
There's that one.
No. Or maybe.
Right.
Henry Garrido, DNC.
Correct.
Convention.
Right.
That's power.
Correct.
National TV, millions of people seeing him. That's power.
100%.
That's what I mean. They're so,
And it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't have to be elected leaders. I think labor plays a big part of it.
And Congressmember Espaillat. Let's call a spade a spade.
Congressman Espaillat.
Right? Like even the fate of our current mayor, my understanding is we need to talk to him.
100%.
Right?
100%.
That's what I mean by power.
But I think, and I've had this conversation with some national leaders as well. Don't forget, our community is, as a voting population, very young. And to a certain degree, perhaps, having lost some of those leaders of the past, like a Menendez or a Dennis Rivera.
Oh, I'm sorry, Hector Figueroa. Let's not leave him out. Right?
Oh,
He rest in peace, right? With the IDC and what he did, moving the pieces to give the obviously part of a larger play, but influential, no doubt, in making sure that there was a Democratic Senate majority, regardless of what side.
Whether we agree or not.
Correct.
No doubt. But here's the thing, right?
And I see too little of that, is what I'm saying.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's a shame because I'm mentioning people in some cases that are, right?
No longer with us.
Yeah, or even just like, for better or worse, said, I'm fading or taking on a less prominent role.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Who do you think is a sitting elected officials, or perhaps not, who could run for citywide office?
I think Richie Torres can run for a citywide office. I'd even make an argument that he should run for mayor to some extent. I mean, I think Richie has, regardless of how you feel about his political...
And what about Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso?
That's formidable. I think, again, he could run. Remember, it could be mayor, it could be public advocate, it could be city comptroller. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but I think he can make a play,
And I would argue that...
But the reason I think Richie right now is, let's face it, right? Show me the money.
Right.
It ain't just that you're ready for prime time, that you can run, that you're substantive, that you have the motor. It's also about...
He's also a prolific fundraiser.
Yeah, that's important. That's important, right? That may eliminate you from running. Even if you have great ideas, you would probably potentially on paper be good if you can't raise the money.
Correct. And I would argue, if you, as my opinion, which you did, and unfortunately, he, by nature of the job that he currently has, can't play that kingmaker role.
Ocasio-Cortez, Congressmember Ocasio-Cortez can run citywide or statewide.
Right. And she has the name recognition,
Correct.
Can fundraise, etc.
Correct.
So someone who cannot play kingmaker based on their current position, but who has been doing a tremendous job and can fundraise and can translate it into bigger office, Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez.
Yes. Well said. Definitely. I've, many people have come on and told me the same.
So there's a lot of people locally, and as a New York girl,
and let's not forget Congressmember Nydia Velázquez, because that part, right? I mean,
Yes, but I will argue.
People come, people go, and there's Congressman Velázquez, right? And we know she had the 100-year war with Vito Lopez. She's still around, No, it's facts. And she sort of helped a group of young, not so young, elected officials and helped them come along the way.
And I will tell you, as someone who's still fighting the good fight, she has been there at some of the toughest battles in our community. Being a progressive before progressive was even a word. And the fact is that Congressmember Velázquez stands up in Congress and speaks on an issue, moves people. She has respect. And she has really worked in the trenches as well politically to get our community engaged. I tell you because I was knocking on doors with her in Pennsylvania last year. And so I've seen it personally. I always like to say my first campaign was Nydia Velázquez 1998. And so in a way, life has come full circle because it's amazing to see the work that she's done over all these years.
I want you to make a prediction.
Boy.
You can't run away from this.
I left my magic 8 ball
No, you got to make a prediction. In all the years you've been doing this work, right, from the hyper-local in your neighborhood, Corona, to now national, you've, played in Albany, you played in the city council, you're now doing the national piece, so you have played in pretty much every terrain. If you were to place a bet,
oh boy, I'm not a betting person.
Who would be the first? City council doesn't. I mean, we've had Melissa Mark-Viverito, kudos to her as well. City council, but again, that was the sort of machinating and the backdooring, right, and the whipping member votes and to get her there. Nonetheless, she put in a lot of work and did a lot of good things. But who would you say would be the first? Somewhere to say you don't have one choice. The first Latino or Latina elected citywide or statewide?
Oof.
Again, taking into consideration fundraising, taking into consideration likability, taking into consideration labor, right? All the things you have to put together.
And we're not counting council speaker because we already have
No,
a Latina
that's
council
not an
speaker.
elected. No,
Right, correct.
that's not elected. I'm talking about.
It's elected by the members.
By the members. I'm talking about popular vote.
That's an excellent question. Are we taking bets on this year? Do you think it's going to happen this cycle?
It doesn't matter what cycle, when, or who. I want a straight answer from you. It doesn't have to be this. I'm just saying it may be. Maybe now, maybe next cycle.
I think it could be an Antonio Reynoso. I think it could be a Eric Gonzalez. I think it could be a Richie Torres.
Pick one.
Richie Torres.
Okay. Thank you. Can we do this again sometime?
I always appreciate you, and I will always answer your call of duty.
Thank you so much. But
join your
there's so
podcast.
much happening. But
There's a lot happening, and what I would love for your listeners to also think about, obviously, we are New Yorkers. There's a lot going on here. So there's a lot of excitement about this election cycle. I think if there's anything that we learned from last year is that campaigns are year-round, and we need to start thinking about the midterms. We need to start thinking about who's going to get the White House next, and that starts now.
Katherine, thank you for the work you're doing. Hopefully you'll be back soon. But this was fun. Soon.
Talk soon.